This is the Awful Announcing Podcast. Here's your host, Brandon Contes.
Alrighty, welcome to episode 57 of the Awful Announcing Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Contes, and this week we are joined by Ian Rapoport. Ian, of course, an NFL Network insider. He also co-hosts the aptly named show, The Insiders, on NFL Network, weeknights at 7 p.m. Eastern. Ian, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. And I have to give you credit because you were one of the easier guests to schedule on this podcast, and you don't strike me as somebody who necessarily has a ton of free time on your hands, so that is very much appreciated.
I like where too. I was happy to get the invite.
Awesome, thank you. Where does early July rank on the busyness scale for being an NFL insider?
It ranks very, very low. So my job is great and a lot of fun and pretty thrilling in a lot of ways and very busy and all of that. And then you get to the draft and basically early May, then it kind of goes off like this. And there's some mini camp stuff and, there's fifth year options and some contractual stuff. But really when you get to the summer, it gets pretty quiet. So what's going on right now is basically golf season. I'll take calls and things will happen and guys will sign and, there'll probably be a couple of contracts that are, either getting worked out or getting ready to be worked out. But it all kind of leads up to training camp, which is still a good 2 weeks away. So I played golf today. I'll probably play golf tomorrow. I'm going to the Mets game on Thursday. So this is the relaxation time, the calm before the storm.
What is the busiest week on the schedule?
Free agency week is the busiest. That is the one where the draft is crazy. But there comes a time in draft week where not that you know everything, but at some point getting the information becomes counterproductive. You're dealing with rumors and people overthinking themselves. There's only so many calls you can make. Free agency week is insanity. And it's funny because everyone always say the same thing to me. They're always this is your time. This is holiday season and all that. And I'm for you. For the fans, it's amazing. For the teams, it's crazy. For us who do what we do, it's almost hard to describe because it's a nonstop, wall-to-wall craziness where you don't really sleep. I got several phone calls for breaking stories at 1 or 2 a.m. last year. It's a week where so much happens and it's so insane. And there's a lot of wins, there's a lot of losses, there's a lot of ups and downs. And then at the end, you're sort of wow, all these things happen. How much do I actually remember? It's really insane.
Does the draft or covering the draft, obviously there are a lot of trades that happen during the draft, but does it lack any sort of instant gratification because you're not reporting the draft picks before they happen?
Well, I am fundamentally against tipping picks. Now I'm not allowed to do it because of where I work, and ESPN's not allowed to do it. So we're both, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
But I'm also against it because, to me, that's kind of if you get the pick beforehand, and you do this long enough, a lot of the picks. I don't even seek them out, and plenty of times I know. And there's plenty of times I don't want to know. I had this year before the Falcons picked, I had a really good tip before the draft, actually a day or so before the draft. The Falcons were doing a lot of homework on Penix. They really liked him, and they might take him. And I couldn't get a firm answer, but I had a feeling something was going on. And I talked about it pre-draft, and they came to me right before the pick, and I was pretty sure it was going to happen, but I didn't really know. And I'm kind of glad I didn't know because it would have made it weird what I'm saying. You don't want to be acting up there, right? So I was very happy I didn't know, and it turned out to be the right pick and everything was great. But anyway, to tip the picks beforehand to me is kind of you're at courtside of a basketball game, you report this shot went in, and then the people at home see it 7 seconds later and they're oh, okay, well, thanks. I already knew the shot went in. So I don't like tipping picks. I love the draft. I love the draft because it is rumor central. It's intrigue. It's people giving misdirection. It's unintentional misdirection. And then at some point you get to find out like everything. You just get to find out everything in front of us. And it's like the ultimate drama. I mean, that's to me, like that's my favorite week of the year. That is the best.
So are you during free agency though? Are you more like if you get something right, are you fist pumping? Like are you excited when you beat somebody else to it? Because obviously you're not getting that type of satisfaction out of the
Right.
draft than if you're sitting back and letting it play out.
Right now, I mean, there are some big things you can break in the draft. Like I was excited after Penix 2 years ago. I broke the Texans trade from 12-3, and I got to break it on air, which was so cool. And like that was a fist bump after that. But in free agency, I mean, believe me, like there's plenty where, like I had a couple fun ones this year that, in a weird way, kind of came out of nowhere. Like Josh Jacobs going to the Packers, I broke on TV, and I was like, even myself stunned. Like that was really fun. I had the Calvin Ridley going to the Titans. Like again, I got to break it on TV. Like that was fun. But the problem is like there's always something where you're like, all right, this is great. Things are going well. I'm crushing it. But you always know that like behind door number 2 is like the scoop that you thought was going to go this way and goes the other way, or like someone has something that you don't know. And like, it's you have to be very wary of thinking that you've really arrived on greatness, because like it humbles you so harshly and quickly.
Is it competitive between reporters inside NFL Network? Like, are you competing with Pelissaro and Mike Garafolo?
We have spent a lot of time and a lot of hours and a lot of manpower from ourselves to make sure that we work together. Now, if I was on something and Mike or Tom breaks it, like there's always going to be something where you're like, like I had that,
Yeah.
But when they break something independently, or when one of them comes to me and is like, hey, I got this, like, can you call someone? Or I go to them and I'm like, hey, I got a tip, but I can't finish it. Can you help? Or, what, we're working both sides, like whatever it is. Like that's really, forget about being great for us and for the company, although it is, like it's really fun. Like we have an excellent teamwork situation going on. So like, if one of them has something that I thought I was going to get, it's not like I'm not upset ever, because like that's the second best outcome,
Yeah.
It's like 1A basically. I just, to get to celebrate one of our scoops, whether it's me or one of theirs, or like if they work together, or if they work with, like, it is all just excellent, because the alternative, someone else breaking it, for sure not as good.
What's your relationship with Adam Schefter? Is it friendly, respectful, rivalry, competitive, all of the above?
I mean, I would say definitely friendly and respectful. It's funny because like I compete very hard and he competes very hard. And when you're sort of like in the arena, or whatever you would say, like, grinding for scoops, it is intense and competitive. I always come back to, well, first of all, if he wasn't so good, then it would not force, like, I, in a way, have gotten to where I am at NFL Network, and, to be fortunate enough to break stories and all that, in part because I watch him and I'm driven by that, and you want to beat that. And so like, there's always a part of me that's like, he kind of created this, honestly, created the modern insider. And because he's so good, I've tried hard to be good. And so like, he'll beat me plenty and I'll beat him some too. But I wouldn't say it's like we're not fighting each other. It's friendly when we see each other. And there's always sort of an appreciation of like, I probably would have a different job if he hadn't kind of honed this and created it,
Do you have
and he's not a jerk.
Yeah, that helps.
Like if he was, or if I was, like it would be much different.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of the same sources as Adam? Like how does it happen that you report stuff almost simultaneously, sometimes maybe just seconds apart. Are teams careful about giving you the same information at the same time, do you think?
I'm sure there are times we have the same sources. You never really know. And I've seen plenty of people source guessing, or people will come to me like, obviously you got this here, and I'll know that I got it some other completely different way. And so there's a lot of things that I'm sort of wary about with this job, and I'm very wary about assuming or guessing where someone else gets something from, because, you really never know. Two, it leads to mistakes on my part. If I just assume oh, he obviously got this from here, I can now go to this person with info and they'll be like, what are you talking about? And so but I think what happens a lot, and teams will tell me this, will be there'll be something that's kind of in the works and you want to put yourself in position to break it. And sometimes they'll mention or teams or agents or players or whoever, they'll be just so you know, someone else is on it.
Okay.
And so I'm pretty upfront. And I think there's a lot of, there's secrecy with sources, but there's transparency with all right, here's what I hear is going on. Is this true? And if it's true, let me know when it's happening, whatever. So there's plenty of times where I'll find out something and I'll probably have an idea, either, someone at ESPN or somewhere else. There's plenty of times I'll find out something and I'll know, all right, someone else is on this too.
Are local reporters territorial? If Ian Rapoport shows up at Florham Park in a few weeks, are Jets reporters what are you doing on our beat, or are they fine with it?
Nah, I mean, Jets reporters are nice. They're, the beat writers are always, at least the ones I've encountered, always really good and respectful and I don't know. I mean, might there be things being said when I leave the facility? Probably. I'm sure I didn't love when national dudes showed up when I was covering the Patriots for the Boston Herald. The reality is those guys are boots on the ground. Yeah. And so first of all, I know a lot of them. Second of all, there's plenty of times where I will read something that one of them write and I'll learn, or I'll be all right, well, this story is developing, but I only knew it because they kind of mentioned this. So you always try to retweet or reach out and be hey, this was a good story. There's those guys not just help fans, but help a lot of us know what's going on inside the locker rooms where I rarely am. So I try to, keep a fairly good rapport with the beat writers that I know. Yeah. Mostly because I appreciate what they give us.
A couple of years ago, Adam Schefter had said he spent $16,000 in chocolate around the holidays that he gave out as gifts to various sources. Have you done, or do you do anything similar to that?
I do not. That is a lot of chocolate. I don't. I mean, I will, if you're out with someone, you will perhaps buy them a drink or
sure.
Treat some dinner, or everyone has a different way. So I'm not a huge gift giver in life, honestly. I think mostly what I can, if we can assume that everyone's providing something, people, teams, agents, players, marketing people, coaches, whoever, if they provide me with scoops, what I can provide is, I will certainly say thank you, or information. And so something that will not betray anyone, but maybe help a agent or a team or a player, or just that's in a way, that's kind of what keeps our ecosystem going, is just the info. So that's kind of, my role in it, and in free agency and the draft and stressful times, sometimes I can provide rather than take. And that's always kind of a nice thing.
Have you ever felt almost, used by an agent or a team, like you thought they were giving you information as a leverage play, or are you able to sniff that out before you report it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when I was younger, it happened a lot more, but now, I mean, I've seen so many different things, and so many different ways of giving info, and so many ways of reporting contracts, and you can always tell. And so I will always say the same thing. And be is this true? And how do you know? And if there's something I'm getting from another angle where I'm all right, if I report this, obviously the other side of this is going to be mad, right? Because like if there's something really positive for one side, let's say it's a, let's say I'm putting out something in a contract negotiation. Well, this team has only offered this. Okay, well, like the team is going to get mad. And so what I will do is I will contact someone I trust and be like, look, this is what I have and this is what I'm going to report. I'd rather get your info now before I report it than after and have you like publicly say something. So like, let's talk now. Give me your input. I'll figure out what to do with it and then proceed from there. I don't get a lot of like pure spin because it's always so obvious.
Yeah.
But you do get things from a side. You just try your absolute hardest to balance it out, mostly because everyone knows anyway.
Do you think you'd be able to become an NBA insider and do it effectively? Like I know you just signed a new deal with NFL Network, but could you have went to Amazon or NBC as they're negotiating NBA media rights and said like you wanted to cover the league, or does it take a lifetime of building relationships to do what you do?
Wow, what a great question. I think I could do it. Now I don't like basketball as much, and I love I talk to Shams frequently.
Yeah.
And I love watching him and Woj go at it. So I would not, if there were different people covering the NBA, let's say,
Sure.
not them, but different people, I think I could do it. It probably took me like a good, legit 6 years to get to a point where I was really breaking news in the NFL. So I could do it in the NBA. It would just take so long and it would be so frustrating because I'm used to knowing a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I would get there and, not know as much. And it would be frustrating. It would take me a minute. Let me respond to one. Hold on.
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead.
Do you have two phones? Is it like, do you have one for your family and one for no? So
no. First of all, I only have two pockets. So if you have two phones, there's only so many pockets.
Cargo pants.
No. Cannot. My wife would kill me if I wore cargo pants. Except if there are people out there who still wear cargo pants, and shout out to you, keep doing you. I have one phone. I will frequently get AirPods and text while I'm talking, and tweet while I'm talking. But what really happens most is like the computer I'm talking to now is a Mac and it has texting. And so I'll like even if I'm on TV, I will text from there or I'll tweet while I'm on just from the computer. So like I don't, when I'm really grinding, I'm rarely just standing there with a phone. But I've never been a two phone guy, mostly because like I have time when I'm off.
Yeah.
But it's never really off because if someone calls you need to talk to, like you're going to talk to that person. So like I would never leave my phone at home. Be like, oh, just bring the personal phone. Like it's all blended. My life is all blended together.
Is there a story that you missed breaking because you didn't have your phone on you for whatever reason?
Ugh. Yeah, there's a couple of bad ones. The worst I've gotten mad before. I don't get mad a lot. I really don't, because if you live and die by every, emotionally, deeply live and die by every scoop, you're not going to last in this job very long. But maybe the maddest I've ever been was we still lived in Dallas, and my oldest, who's now almost 11, was like 4 months old. No, actually, yeah, like 5 months old. And it was during coaching search season. And I was pretty sure that Lovie Smith was going to the Bucks. I was pretty sure. And my oldest was being fussy, and I took him downstairs from the couch, upstairs to change him, left my phone on the couch. I was like, And I said to my wife, I'm like, hey, do me a favor. When you come up, bring my phone up. And she's like, oh, I'm washing bottles. I'll be right up. Probably like 6 minutes later, she comes running up the stairs. She's like, your phone rang twice, same number. And I'm like, oh my God, I knew this was it. And then I call the person like, Lovey's going to the Bucks. Like, why didn't you answer? I'm like, I was changing my child. And I'm like, was anybody reported this? Like, yeah, Glazer just reported. I'm like, And I was so mad. And she was like, listen, if the worst thing that happens to you is you missed out on a story because you were changing your son, you'll be okay. In which case, like, I didn't want to hear that at that time, but
Yeah.
she's right. No, there's like training camp every year. Like I had a pretty good chance to break the DK Metcalf contract extension, except I was literally in the air with no Wi-Fi, and I landed to like 15 different messages and the story right out there. I'm like, so there's always going to be those, but the Lovie Smith one, that sticks out for me, no doubt.
What is the most out of nowhere scoop that you ever got? Like something you weren't working on that just fell into your lap?
Those are always fun. Those are always really fun. So it was probably like 6 years ago this time. It was around draft time, and I was making draft calls, which basically what that means is like I write down everyone on my phone and all the teams, and I call everyone. Now, not everybody answers. Not every conversation is fruitful, but I literally call every single person on my phone on the team, see what information you can get, and then go back around. And it's really helpful. It takes a long time, but it's really helpful. And I was talking to someone, on like a Thursday or something 3 days before I was in leave for the draft. And I was like, hey, are you on this Gronk thing? And I'm like, what Gronk thing? Like, the Gronk thing about him getting traded. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, Gronk getting traded to the Bucs. I'm like, no. And it's like, you better make some calls. I'm like, oh, he's like, go make some calls. I'm like, so I make 3 phone calls. I reached 3 people immediately. I reported that Gronk had requested a trade from the Patriots and would only go to the Bucs. And it all happened within 6 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And it was, and it was like, remember, it was like before that, it was like a year of like, will Gronk unretire? Where is he going to go? And like, it was great for me, but literally it just came out of nowhere. And that was fun.
What's the biggest swing and miss of your career? And to your credit, there haven't been many, but what stands out the most?
I feel like there's only one. And it was one where it was probably the most important thing to ever happen to me in reporting. It was, and I don't even want to say it was a swing and a miss, because swing and a miss sort of means like, I was like, I kind of like tried for something and didn't get like this one. It was right. And then it was wrong. But it was instructive. So it was Antonio Brown getting traded to the Bills, from the Steelers to the Bills. And, that was the year he showed up in like the fur coat of the playoff game. And like, it was clear he was getting traded somewhere. I got the scoop. I was pretty sure the deal was happening. And I knew the terms, and, I got it from a really, really, really good source. And I called some people, but my source was rock solid. So I report Antonio Brown is close to a deal with the Bills. And that was like 11:30 at night. So I go on TV. I, do a victory lap, do this whole thing. And then I wake up at 5 a.m. to text messages. And I'll never forget this. I got a text from my boy, Mike Garafolo, and all it says is, what did you do? And I'm like, shit, like what could possibly have happened? Well, it turned out that the deal fell through. He didn't want to go there, whatever, wasn't going there. And they put out a statement, was like, we explored Antonio Brown and didn't end up happening, whatever. So I was right. The deal was close. It was about to be done, and it didn't happen. But what happened, and that sucked. Okay. Like I woke up, it was panic. I had to do like 4 interviews. I remember I talked to Deadspin for like 45 minutes. I went through everything, did radio interviews, like did the whole, like, let me tell you everything that happened. Right. But the best thing that happened is I didn't have information from all sides during that trade. I didn't. I had a great source, rock solid source. And I had another source tell me the terms, but I didn't have it from all sides. And what that forced me to do is every time I report anything now, you got to get it from all sides. You got to, like, if you're going to do a trade, there's 3 sides at least. So, and I've lost plenty because I just didn't have it good enough.
Yeah.
And so that sort of embarrassment, or whatever you would say, basically changed the way I reported for the rest of my career.
Yeah, even though you didn't actually report that it was a done deal.
Yeah, but like, you're right. That's true. But if I'm or Schefter or whoever is going to say a deal is close, like that thing better happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people should know us well enough where like if we say it's close, that means that thing is getting finalized. And it was, but it wasn't. And anyway, that was, one of the more important things to ever happen in my career.
Yeah. And I get obviously wanting to avoid that backlash, but at the same time, as a fan, I think we also want to know when deals are being talked about or rumored and close and
That's hard.
don't happen.
It's one of the
anyway.
hard things for us. It really is, because you got to hold back, because sometimes, it's like the observing of a phenomenon changes the phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
The reporting of a deal sometimes can change it. So that's hard.
What about it? Is there a big rumor or something that you heard that never ended up happening, never got reported? Like was Brett Favre thinking about coming out of retirement at one point again, or the Patriots thinking about trading Tom Brady, like anything crazy like that just didn't pan out?
I mean, there's been so many. I chased so hard the Darren Waller getting traded to the Packers for Devontae Adams, the trade that never ended up happening. There's so many trades. I mean, I was pretty sure Derrick Henry was getting traded to the Ravens last year. Didn't, but then of course signed with the Ravens in free agency. There's so many, and so like sometimes just so I'm ready, I'll have it in my drafts on Twitter, like, hey, if this deal happens, so I can move quickly. And then it's always sad when you kind of just have to delete that tweet that you wrote out for yourself. It's like, all right, well, that's not happening, but delete.
Do you know if is the Insiders going to end up being at 7 p.m. throughout the season? Is that the new time slot?
Yeah, that is the plan. Now there's some other stuff, like there's pregame shows and stuff in there on like days there are games, but yeah, Insiders primetime. Different cadence for us. We're used to being during the day when news breaks during the show. This will be a little different because the day is usually done by 7 p.m. But it's cool because like, the actual show, like doing it's a lot of work to get there. And our, whole day is work, phone calls and whatever. But actually doing the show with these guys, with Mike and Tom and Judy, it's really fun. Like it's actually like legitimately fun. So I'm looking forward to that. And it's a great way to, end a day.
So that also then it frees you up to do the Pat McAfee show more. Is that?
I mean,
something that's potentially on tap.
Yeah, I mean, we will see what happens. I'm always a guest on the show, so if if I'm fortunate enough for him to ask, I will for sure do it. But I mean, regardless, like Pat is the best. His show is awesome. I love those guys dearly. I spent a lot of time with them over the last couple of years. Like those guys are the best. So, and now like because even though I'm working during the day, like I still watch. Like the show is awesome. Like those guys are great.
Yeah. How did you like filling in for Pat? You did. I know you're a guest, but you did host it.
I did. It was a lot of fun. Again, like I basically went in not knowing what I was doing, and those guys kind of carried me. But it's like, it's kind of like I feel like with Insiders, like it's like hanging out with your buddies. It's like I'll see those guys at events, and it's like seeing your friends. Those guys are awesome.
Did you always think of yourself as somebody that could do TV and host, be an entertainer? Like, was that because that's not every journalist's forte? No.
I knew for sure that I was going to be a newspaper reporter my whole life. I was very confident in that. I had no designs on being on TV at all. I mean, the most I ever did was when I was in Boston covering the Patriots, the Boston Herald, I would go fill in on like Comcast or something. And it was great because they give me like, $150 an appearance, which was like, so much money. And plus there was a Chick-fil-A in the mall nearby. So I'd go get Chick-fil-A, which was just the greatest. But like, I never had any designs on it at all. And then when NFL Network called me in 2012, we had the whole talk and whatever. And like, when they kind of asked me about possibly being on TV, the first thing I said was like, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And they were like, we'll teach you. And it ended up working out great, but like, people ask me all the time, like, oh, is this like a dream job? And it is great. And I truly do love every day, but like, I never even dreamt that any of this would be possible. So definitely not.
Well, Ian, I know you got to run. Thank you so much for the time. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, man. Take care. Keep doing the good work you guys do.
Appreciate it. That is Ian Rapoport. I'm Brandon Contes. This is the Awful Announcing Podcast. Please rate and subscribe to this podcast. Please also subscribe to Awful Announcing's YouTube page. But regardless of how you consume Awful Announcing and the Awful Announcing Podcast, thanks for listening and be good.
Thanks for listening to the Awful Announcing Podcast. For the latest news spanning the sports media landscape and more, check out awfulannouncing.com and follow us at Awful Announcing.